We're back here, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. 215-204-9449 is the number if you want to call and hang with us. Temple comes off a tough loss in their home opener, and they dropped to 1-1 on the year after defeating Penn in the season opener at the Palestra. Let's go out to the hotline right now and welcome in a man that is no stranger to the area of Philadelphia, as he was a coach at Villanova, Manhattan, and UMass. Compiled a 280 and 237 record in his collegiate head coaching career, and now he's a CBS Sports Network college basketball analyst, and that's our good buddy Steve Lappas, whose son Peter Lappas is actually a graduate assistant on Fran Dunphy's staff. So, Coach, it's Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. How you been?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great, and we appreciate you coming on. And you've been a coach for a while now. You're working with CBS, and this Temple team is young. Fran Dunphy is an exceptional coach. He really knows how to develop players. But over the last two games, they struggled in the final minutes. I know they closed off that Penn game on a high note, but last night they weren't able to get consistent scoring down the stretch. When you have a young team, what's the message to them in the final 5 minutes as you try to close out some games?
Well, it's not only that they're young. The thing, to me, the biggest issue that they have is replacing a guy who just, Khalif Wyatt, who bailed them out time and time again, who everybody on the team knew this guy's the guy who's going to take the big shot for us. He's going to take the big play. These guys are just finding themselves. So I think they're doing very well to be 1-1. They could have easily lost that game to Penn after coughing up a 15-point lead. They found a way to get it done. Last night in the end of the game, they didn't play well. But these are the things that they have to learn and figure out who's who now that there's no Khalif Wyatt around. I don't know if there was a more dominant guy on one team in college. And they lost other guys, no question. But Khalif Wyatt was a special player on that Temple team last year.
And he put so many exuberant performances at the Liacouras Center last year. I remember that 30-plus point game that he had up against VCU and led that dramatic comeback and eventually blew Shaka Smart's team out of the building. And you see them, they lose Khalif Wyatt. You're absolutely right. They have to replace him. And it comes down to confidence and consistency with this young team. Who's one player that you think could be that consistent 20-point scorer on this squad if they have one?
I think the guy with the biggest upside on the team is Quentin DeCozy. And, I give Dumpf a tremendous amount of credit because he knows his guys and he knows that this kid has to develop. And he was playing awful in the second half against Penn. But yesterday, he was still confident, still looking to take the shots, played much better. So I think the guy with the biggest upside on the team who could really be a star, I think, is Quentin DeCozy. I think Will Cummings has made a big step this year. He looks very good. Dalton Peppers played pretty well. Lee, they got to get a guy like DeCozy to step up because he can be even better than he is.
Hey, Coach, it's Chase Sr. Thanks for joining the show. Dalton Peppers had a pretty interesting ride at Pennsbury High School. He dropped 2,000 points, was a highly touted recruit, went to West Virginia, got some time as a freshman, and went to the Final Four with the Mountaineers, transferred over to Temple, and last year his playing time was very sporadic. His confidence kind of took a hit, but how much of a relief for him was it to go out there at Penn in the Palestra in a crazy environment, knock down his first couple of shots, and drop a career-high 19 points?
Well, it had to help him a lot, and he played with a lot of confidence, and I thought he played pretty much with confidence last night also. And the other thing about him against Penn is he also got 9 rebounds, so he's a big, strong kid. He can do a lot of things. He is he is the best pure shooter on the team, so they're going to need him to step up day in and day out and make some three-point shots to keep the defenses honest.
The last couple of years, these really athletic point guards have kind of caught the NBA and the college basketball spectrum by storm. Will Cummings is one of them. There's not many athletes at the point guard position in college basketball like Will Cummings. He can slice through the lane, finish at will, and has also improved his outside shot. What have you seen from Cummings because he's evolving into a pretty good player for Fran Dunphy?
I like what I've seen from him so far, and one of my concerns really coming into the season for them was what was going to happen at the point guard position, because I thought Cummings last year just had too many games where he was not a factor. This year he's been a big factor in both games. He clearly looks like the leader on the team to me or to people on the outside looking in. So I think Will Cummings so far has played very well. Yeah, he had a couple of moments yesterday late in the game, not great, but I think this is a kid who's gotten a lot better. And as you said, he can get to the basket with the best of them, get fouled, makes free throws. His three-point shooting has improved a bit, so I think that Will Cummings can have a really good year.
Steve Lappas joins us on the hotline, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. And, Coach, I want to get back to Quinton DeCozy. Didn't play a whole bunch of minutes last year. The one big standout game that he did have last year was in that blowout loss to Duke where he had 15 points in New Jersey, his home state. He really did play an exceptional game there. But you see Quinton DeCozy, I feel like you want to see him be a little bit more aggressive when he plays in the basketball games this year. But when you have a player that didn't get a whole lot of minutes in year one, and now he's getting a lot of minutes in a big role in year two, what's the toughest part of developing that player?
But what you're seeing him do now is like go 4 for 19 in a game and really, make some bad choices in terms of shot selection, in terms of time and score. So I think those are the kind of things you're going to learn. When he wasn't out there a lot at crunch time last year, they had a very experienced team. Dump was playing the seniors as well he should at the end of games. Now this kid's in a completely different role. And against Penn, truthfully, if Penn wins that game, a lot of it's because of what Quinton DeCozy did or did wrong in the last 6-7 minutes of that game. So I think shot selection and knowing when I can shoot it, what's the time, what's the score, and a shot that's a good shot in the first half isn't necessarily a good shot with 5 minutes to go in a tie game. So these are the things that he has to learn.
Last night against Kent State, it came down to they couldn't defend the three-point ball. Through the first 2 games of the season, they've allowed 48 points from behind the three-point line. What are some things that need to improve defensively as the Owls look to contain the perimeter shooting?
Well, that has been their big Achilles heel so far. And, if defending the threes becomes such an important part of the game because, you play teams, there's enough teams out there that rely on making three-point shots that you have to be able to defend on it. I think a lot of times it starts with the defense on the ball because I think a lot of teams shoot threes against you well when you're allowing dribble penetration and you have to help and then you're kicking the ball. And Dump's comment in the paper today, which was a great comment, which was, we help too much. And that's why last night Kent State got a lot of open threes. Guys are thinking about helping on defense, but there's such a thing as helping too much. Knowing when to help and when to stay tight on your man, that's something that teams learn with experience, and this team doesn't have experience.
Running out an 8-man rotation is not necessarily out of the ordinary, but what Fran Dunphy has been faced with is an 8-man rotation that does not have a ton of experience. How difficult of a situation is Dunphy faced with, given that he has 8 guys that are talented but also have not played much together and do have some inexperience?
Well, again, that's why the first month of the season is going to be up and down, and maybe even the first 6 weeks of the season is going to be up and down. And that's with guys learning their roles, learning how to play together. And to me, as I said, the biggest thing is, even for Dump, a big thing about we don't have that guy who we used to give the ball to, and the whole building knew he was going to get. I mean, I can't accentuate enough. To me, what a force I thought Khalif Wyatt was. This guy was when you have a guy like that in terms of what it does for your coaching staff, your players, everybody in the building knew this guy was going to do something for you. Now they have to figure that out. So these are the issues that they have to deal with over the next month, 6 weeks, in terms of having a good season.
Now, Khalif Wyatt, he's playing in China, didn't find a way to get on an NBA team, which I'm really still scratching my head about this. I know people say he doesn't have the skill set to be an NBA player, but the guy is a winner. When you have a young group like this and you replace a superstar like Khalif Wyatt, and these players hear from the reporters all the time about how great Khalif Wyatt was, can that all be a distraction to a young team that's trying to grow and really find their own identity here?
Well, there's no doubt it can be a bit of a distraction, but I think that these guys are just going to concentrate on what it is that they have to do. And, Dump is as experienced and as good a coach as you're going to find in this country, and he's got a great staff. They will get this. I'm impressed. I'll be honest with you. I'm very impressed with the way they are playing so far. Yes, didn't win yesterday, and they haven't extended the 3, and they've made some questionable decisions at the end of games. But I really think they look good in parts, and the problem is they've got to become good for 40 minutes. And I think they've had 30 minutes in each one of these last 2 games where they've been pretty good. So I don't think it's a bad start for them. They have to get to the point where they can do it for 40 minutes.
A few more questions with Coach Steve Lappas before we let him run. Works for the CBS Sports Network as a college basketball analyst now. Two other players that I've been really impressed with through the first two games of the season have been Anthony Lee and Mark Williams. The two big men look really promising this year. I could see Lee averaging a double-double consistently. He's done it through the first two games. And Mark Williams, he's a freshman. Dunphy usually doesn't play a whole lot of freshmen, a lot of minutes, but he has to this year with the lack of depth on this roster. And Williams' defense has been really impeccable so far throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, I think both those guys are going to be very good. I think Anthony Lee is a huge, Williams, he's a freshman, so he's got to contribute. He's got to, at times he's tried to do things that he shouldn't be trying so far, but he's going to be a good player. He's learning. The guy they need right now is Lee. And I think Lee, when he's had the opportunities, has really come through for them in the low post. So I think that Lee is a guy that they got to continue to look towards, especially in the end of games, the last 5 minutes, 7 minutes. They seem to have become enamored with shooting jump shots at the end of games. I think getting the ball into Lee, which Cummings did a couple of times effectively against Penn, was something that really, really will help them.
Temple was was picked to finish fifth in the American Athletic Conference. It seemed like a little bit of a reach, but through 30 minutes in each game, like you said, Steve, this Temple team has looked pretty damn good. What does that say about the coaching abilities of one Fran Dunphy, because he's recognized as one of the most respectable coaches in college basketball?
I mean, the record speaks for itself. I mean, and he's a guy who has consistently, he's overturns his roster as college basketball coaches do, by force every 4 years for sure. And he always has a winner and always has a competitive team. And he always has a team that plays the same way. And I think a lot of times when you look for what makes this guy a great coach, what makes him a great coach is because whether it's this year or 10 years from now, you'll watch his team play with different players, and they'll play the same way. They'll play the tough defense. They'll be unselfish. They'll play together. That's what makes Fran Dunphy Fran Dunphy. So this team will improve as the year goes on. It's a challenge for him. There's no question. One of the biggest he's ever had. But he's also in a league where there's going to be opportunities, and that's important too. You got to play in a league. Nowadays, you have to get quality wins. Well, they're playing in a league where they're going to have opportunities to get quality wins. They just got to hang in there, get better every day by practice, which he does as good as anybody. And this team, I think, will be there in the end.
Coach, last one from me here. Dunphy came out and said this might be the most difficult and challenging year since he came to Temple in 2006, 2007. But to be faced with such a young roster that does have a lot of talent, is it exciting to a certain extent knowing that you can build these guys up into pretty good players and you don't know what you're going to get on any given night?
Well, I think in the end, if they get to the NCAA tournament, he can look back on it with a great degree of satisfaction. But right now, I don't think he's thinking about the excitement. He's thinking about how are we going to get better at guarding the three? How are we going to make better decisions in the last 5 minutes of games? I think right now, that's all he's concerned about. And, it's not a matter of excited. I think you're excited every year. That's why you do this. That's why he's coaching basketball. So I think he's a guy who every day is just looking for his players and his team to get a little better every day.
Before we let you run, I'm sure it's exciting for you as a father to see your son Peter on the sidelines and learning from the great Fran Dunphy. I'm sure you talk to your son a lot. What has he said so far about this experience as he enters year number 2 as a graduate assistant?
He absolutely loves it. The Dump couldn't be with a better guy. And I'm friends with all the coaches in the city. I've known them all for years, but he couldn't be with a better guy. The staff has treated him great, and they've given him, he's part of the staff. They'll talk to him about the game. It's not like he's there and he's just, getting the water bottles, which he's doing, and all that stuff like he has to do. But they're asking him how he feels about things and what he thinks about what he sees. So it's been an unbelievable experience for him. You know what I mean? And I couldn't personally thank Dunphy that he's given him the opportunity.
Coach, excellent job today on the show. We appreciate it, and we look forward to talking to you as the basketball season continues here at Temple.
Let me just throw this one last thing at you. Tomorrow night, I'm doing the Villanova Mount St. Mary's game at the Pavilion. It's the first game that I'm doing in the Pavilion, so I'm excited about that.
Excellent atmosphere out there, Coach. We appreciate a few minutes today.
Thanks.
Coach Steve Lappas right there.